My whole life I've wondered, what pulls me? What brings me to decide everything? As I chased the question of what controls my actions, I searched and I found strings attached to each of my fingers, a perfect braid, as if I was a puppet, someone controlling every move I made. I was terrified, and questions flooded my mind. Where did they lead? Could I ever be freed? Was the person controlling them looking out for my needs? I needed to know, so I followed and asked, who has the blame? Who wanted me to make so many mistakes? Who's messing up my life like it's some twisted game? Tripping and stumbling in circles, the string never stopping, I was wondering if I'd ever know who controls my life. And as I was about to let this evil master win, I found the end. The strings were held by my very own hand. Was I the one who was to blame? Had I been living a puppet whose only master was myself? I was overwhelmed by guilt and by shame. In my moment of weakness, I heard a voice call my daughter. I looked for my dad, knowing I'd see an empty spot, but hoping to avoid the faith I forgot when I noticed the strings, but I had reached a dead end. God help me, I'm desperate, was my cry met by silence. But I made it so far, I couldn't pretend to ignore him anymore. God, if you're real, take my strings. Will you give them to me, was the reply. I should have been overcome with joy and surrendered in an instant, but the part of me that wanted control fought back. Will I have to change? My whole life could be rearranged. I wanted to keep my power, but I fell on my face. Why didn't I run like I did in my head? Instead, I was gasping for air. Unaware, my strings were so tangled from my wandering, I'd wrapped myself in my own web of sin. I was still my own master, but I was powerless. My control was a delusion the whole time. The fall left me defenseless, so I raised my hands in a silent plea. God, I know I don't deserve it, but please have mercy on me. Take control of my strings. Years later, I've come to my senses, and I know that night he didn't take control of my strings, he cut them. He has the power, but he lets me move without getting caught. He lets me wander in a circle and still breathe because I know the answer I once forgot. Each day I lift my hands and think of him trimming those strings that once held me. I am no longer my own master, but boy, am I free.